Hey everyone, welcome to Movie Marathons HQ, where we do movie marathons connected to new releases and where we enjoy and review some of our favorite movies. This video is part of the Toy Story 5 movie marathon, where we are watching one movie every week as we prepare for the release of Toy Story 5, hitting theaters in July 2026. Today we are discussing Toy Story 2. Released in 1999 and directed again by John Lasseter, this is the follow-up to Toy Story, which we discussed before. And this had a really big build-up because Toy Story was a huge success both financially and commercially and with critics and with audiences, and it was just a smash for Pixar. So a sequel was greenlit, but they really wanted to make something that delivered. And I would say that Toy Story 2 does deliver. Overall, I love this movie too. I think it is as exceptional as the first Toy Story. It's really hard for me to know which one I like better. There's different things to love in both of them and very few things to dislike, so it's a grand slam for me. For positives, I would mention the animation. Again, the music by Randy Newman, and especially featuring another amazing track, When She Loved Me by Sarah McLachlan. The scene with the toy fixer, the villain in this movie, which I think is a better villain than Sid in Toy Story, the humor, and then the heart and the themes in this movie are just as strong as they were in Toy Story. And then for negatives, it's just a retcon that at the time of this movie's release, it wasn't a retcon, but now that we've seen Lightyear, there's something that movie by existing retconned something we learned in this movie. So then it seems like this movie's the retcon, but it's not. So we'll get into that. Spoilers ahead for Toy Story 2. First is the animation in Toy Story 2. As you know, Toy Story was the world's first fully computer animated film. And so the animation in that movie was superb, and it's also very good here in Toy Story 2. They do a few different things, and because this movie sees a lot more environments, we do kind of see the animation expertise of Pixar expand in this movie, so the animation is still a positive. The music in Toy Story 2 is phenomenal again. It's by Randy Newman, who did the music in the first movie, and while we don't get, well, we do get You've Got a Friend in Me, this time like re-performed in a different way by Robert Goulet, and then in the movie it's Squeaky, the penguin toy, and so he's the one who gets to sing that like Robert Goulet. But the movie throughout Toy Story 2 is also very good, and we're introduced to a song which I didn't know until I looked it up for this review. Was done by Sarah McLachlan, but it's called When She Loved Me. I thought it was When Somebody Loves You, but that's another very powerful song, very emotional, fits the themes of the movie, it kind of paints the picture of why Jessie is the way that she is, where she wants to be in the museum and doesn't want to be a toy. So it's very strong music in Toy Story 2. There's a scene in Toy Story 2 that it seems like is everybody's favorite scene, where the toy fixer comes in and fixes up Woody. So he repaints him and he stitches up his rip that he has in his clothing. He kind of gets him all polished up and shined up. He even shines his boots. And then, of course, he paints over the bottom of Woody's foot where Andy had written his name. And I don't know what it is about that scene, but I just love it. And I think everybody loves it. It's funny to think of this being a profession, but I suppose there are people out there who repair collectibles and things like that. It's just a fun scene, and it's so fun that I put it as its own positive. We also have a villain in this movie that I think is very effective. The Prospector, one of the gang from Woody's Roundup, voiced by Kelsey Grammer, is a sympathetic character. I love that he's in a box because he's a collectible. So to the adults, that makes sense. And then throughout the movie, he's in his box and he's a little bit helpless, but then he leaves his box so that he can stop Woody from leaving. And so he's the villain because he's in opposition to our protagonist, but I don't think he's really a villain. He has a goal that's about to be reached, and then Woody is standing in the way, and Woody was initially supportive but then changes his mind. I don't think that really makes the prospector a villain. I think his voice is great and what he does is great, and he does get his comeuppance in the end, which feels a little bit unfair, to be honest. But I think he's just a really complex and interesting character to have in here. So the villain, prospector, is another positive. The humor here is also very funny. Toy Story is pretty funny and pretty amusing and just a lot of fun. And Toy Story 2 continues that. I think because Pixar and John Lasseter knew a little bit more what their MO was going to be as a studio and what they could get away with, like what was the tone of this movie. I think they were able to get away with a few more things. So lots of the characters are funny and there's just lots of humor throughout the whole thing. I find it very interesting psychologically, or like philosophically more, I suppose, where there's a scene where Woody has a dream. He dreams that Andy is going to abandon him. I just don't know what that means, to suggest that toys are able to dream in this universe. That's pretty philosophically interesting, but pretty funny, and there's lots of humor here. Finally, the heart in this movie and the themes are another positive. Just like Toy Story, this movie is not a kid's movie. Pixar makes movies that are enjoyed by children audiences and adult audiences, and there's a lot in this movie that I think adults can enjoy. Some of the themes of this movie are, again, about identity, but going even further. And one of the things that I love was, in the first movie, Woody had to knock the sense into Buzz Lightyear and say, you are a toy, you are a child's plaything, because Buzz really thought he was a space ranger. Now they've flipped that in Toy Story 2. Woody forgets that he's a toy and he begins to think of himself as a collectible. And Buzz has to say the same thing to Woody as Woody said to him. You are a toy, you are a child's plaything. And that's really clever, and it really lands as far as the themes go. And then Jesse and Bullseye and the Prospector too, wanting to be part of something and then having it ripped away because of somebody's agency, that's also very relatable. And I think that's really good. Jessie here is voiced by Joan Cusack, and she's introduced in this role and is another strong character. So there's lots of themes and lots that they go through here in this movie, in this adventure. And as I mentioned before in the animation positive, it's more outside of the home. So they get to do a lot more, and you get to see themes of friendship and loyalty and family and all those things. So very strong messages from Toy Story 2. Now, for a negative in Toy Story 2, there are strong Star Wars themes throughout this whole movie, and they build on that up until the point where Buzz finally faces off against Emperor Zurg. And then they do the play on the scene in The Empire Strikes Back where Darth Vader is revealed to be Luke Skywalker's father. So then in this movie, Zurg reveals that he is the father of Buzz Lightyear, and Buzz Lightyear says, no, just like Luke Skywalker did. So it's very funny on the surface. And who cares if that is his father? And then that works in the universe of Toy Story. And then towards the end of the movie, they're playing catch, and they're catching up on all this missed time, and it's just a lighthearted joke. If you've seen Lightyear, we learn that at least in that version, which I think is the movie that was played in front of audiences in the Toy Story universe, this is Lightyear is the movie that Andy saw in theaters. But in that one, Buzz is, or I should say, Emperor Zurg is revealed to be a version of Buzz Lightyear, and all of the other robots call him Zurg because they couldn't quite say Buzz, so they said Buzzurg, and then it just got shortened into Zurg. So in the movie, Zurg is not Buzz Lightyear's father. He's himself in another version. And sure, you could say it's a generational different version, but he's not his father. So then for this toy Zurg to say that he is the father of Buzz Lightyear, that's not factually correct based on the movie. Maybe the Zurg toy is programmed to think he is the father of Buzz Lightyear. It doesn't really matter, but it just gets sticky when you watch this movie after having watched Lightyear. And even when I watched Lightyear, I thought that didn't really make sense, but I couldn't remember how it worked exactly from when Zurg was revealed to be Buzz's father. But now that I remembered it was in this one, it's a retcon that doesn't really work and is part of why Lightyear doesn't work to begin with. But overall, it's a negative for this movie. Now, how might Toy Story 2 connect to Toy Story 5? Well, Woody and Buzz and Ham and Rex and Bo Peep are all going to return in Toy Story 5, voiced by the same actors as they were in Toy Story 2. Slinky Dog will be in Toy Story 5, but voiced by Blake Clark, not Jim Varney, since Jim Varney passed away. Mr. Potato Head will be voiced by Jeff Bergman, not Don Rickles, as Don Rickles has passed away. And then in this movie, we get introduced to Mrs. Potato Head, who in this movie was voiced by Estelle Harris, but she's passed away. So in Toy Story 5 will be voiced by Anna Vocino. And then we also get introduced to Jessie, voiced by Joan Cusack. And so Jessie will be back in Toy Story 5. I also think it's interesting that Bullseye is a non-speaking character, yet you can still understand what Bullseye communicates. They also make reference to a lawn gnome next door who seems to be able to talk, and I think that lawn gnome will appear in Toy Story 5. So that's my review of Toy Story 2. What do you think of this movie, and how do you think it might connect to Toy Story 5? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. Follow Movie Marathons HQ on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and also on Letterboxd, where you can see all of the movie marathons we've done in the past and all that we have going on right now. The next movie in this marathon is Toy Story 3. See you at the movies.